Did you know that simply crossing a state line with your firearm could turn you into a criminal overnight? It's true, and it's something that catches well-meaning people off guard. And the worst part about it, you may have broken the law and you don't even know it until it's too late. I'm Jeff Hampton, a former prosecutor turned people's lawyer. And if you're like me, you take your rights, as well as your responsibilities with your firearms, very seriously. Whether you're planning a road trip or moving to a new state, learning how to travel with a firearm across state lines is an absolute must. A little knowledge can save you a lot of headaches and keep you out of legal trouble in the future. In this video, I'm going to break down what you need to know in order to legally carry your firearm from state to state. And if you wait around till the end of this video, I'll also give you a free resource to help you understand if you're starting in your state and you're going to another state, what steps you need to take. Picture this. You're driving down the interstate, just cruising down the road, with your favorite handgun tucked away safely in your vehicle. Then you start to make your way from Texas or whatever state you're in across the state line into a new state. Suddenly, you see red and blue lights behind you. You hear the sirens start to go off. You pull over on the side of the road. The cops walk up to your window, knock on the window. You roll it down, and then there's a series of questions, and the next thing you know, you find yourself being arrested for illegal possession of a firearm. How does this happen? Here's the problem. Laws change as soon as you cross state lines. What was legal in Texas, or where your home state is, may not be legal just a few miles down the road in another state. In fact, in some states, just carrying a firearm without knowing the local laws can not only result in hefty fines, but worse, jail time. When it comes to you carrying your firearm across state lines, it's a maze out there. And the last place you want to be is on the wrong side of the law just because you don't know the rules. So let's start with 18 U.S.C. 926A, otherwise known as the Firearms Protection Act of 1986, or FOPA for short. This federal law is like your travel buddy when it comes to you transporting your firearm from your home state to any other state in the country. What FOPA says is that you are legally allowed to transport your firearm from a state you're allowed to own it and hold it to another state you're allowed to have it, even if that means you have to drive through some states that are less than friendly to gun owners. But here's the kicker. FOPA doesn't just give you a free pass to do whatever you want. It's not a get out of jail free card, and there are certain guidelines you must follow. And trust me, if you miss even one of these guidelines, it could land you in serious trouble. To make sure you're fully protected under the Firearm Owners Protection Act, you need to know the rules inside and out. So let's break them each down in plain English. Number 1, you must be legally allowed to possess the firearm both in the state of origin and the state of your destination. Number 2, your firearm must be unloaded. And I'm talking completely unloaded. No rounds in the chamber, and certainly no loaded magazines attached. You wouldn't believe how many people overlook this simple but crucial step. The law requires your firearm to be completely free of ammunition. Yes, even those rounds you stashed down in the magazine. Number 3, it needs to be locked in a hard-sided container out of your reach. This is another key point. You can't just toss the firearm under your seat or in a glove box and call it a day. For most of us, this means putting the firearm in the trunk. But what if you're driving a truck or an SUV? That's easy. Now you need to place the firearm as far back in the rear cargo area as you possibly can. Number 4, your ammunition must be stored separately from your firearm. Ideally, it's in its own locked container. I know some folks think they can throw the firearm in the same bag as they have the ammunition, but that would be a mistake. The law is clear on this. Both the firearm and the ammunition must be inaccessible while you're driving. That means they should be in separate locked containers. The last thing you want is a cop walking up asking you why your firearm is sitting next to your ammo in the passenger seat. Number 5, you must be traveling, which means you're not staying in states that you're not legally allowed to possess this firearm. In other words, the Firearm Owners Protection Act is limited to you passing through states, not staying in states where firearm possession is illegal. Now, you might be thinking, Jeff, my laws are pretty relaxed on all this stuff, so why does any of this matter to me? But I want to remind you, the moment you cross over state lines, federal law takes over, and the only thing that matters is being in compliance with the Firearm Owners Protection Act. I mention this because many people will reach out to me and say, my home state allows me to carry my firearm loaded and ready, so why does this matter? But remember, you might carry loaded and ready in your state, but as soon as you cross state lines, that's going to spell big trouble for you. I cannot stress this enough. Do your homework before you travel. Each state has its own laws about firearms. What kinds of firearms you can carry, where you can carry them, and how many rounds you can keep in your magazines. For example, a firearm that's perfectly legal in Texas might not be legal in Colorado because of differences in the law when it comes to magazine capacities. Colorado, like many other states, has restrictions on magazine sizes. And of course, if you're going to New Jersey or New York, these states are not exactly going to roll out the red carpet for gun owners. The biggest mistake I see people make is assuming that what's legal in their state will be legal to where they're headed. It's your responsibility to know each state's individual laws regarding your ability to carry your firearm, and make sure you do it before you travel. Now, what if you have a concealed carry permit? You might think you're in the clear here, right? Well, in some states, you'd be right on that, because some states have what is known as reciprocity agreements, which allow you to carry your firearm with what's legal in your state, and you can travel to that other state with very little hassle. But here's the catch. Not all states play by the same rules. Some states, like Texas and Oklahoma, might recognize your Kansas concealed carry permit, but cross over into California, now you're playing a whole different ballgame. In California, suddenly your permit doesn't mean a thing. Reciprocity agreements can be a wonderful thing, but watch out. In many ways, each state have limiting factors on them. For example, number 1, minimum age requirements. States often have different age limits for obtaining and carrying with a concealed carry permit. Number 2, training requirements. The amount and type of training required to obtain a permit can vary between states. Number 3, recognized permit types. Some states may only recognize resident permits, meaning they only honor permits issued to residents of that specific state. Then number 4, types of firearms covered. Reciprocity may only apply to certain types of firearms, such as handguns, but some states will not recognize long guns. It is so important to remember that reciprocity agreements are not a guarantee that you can legally carry in another state. For example, Florida might honor Georgia concealed carry permits, but you have to read between the lines and the fine print. What if an 18-year-old Georgia driver is carrying concealed in Florida? But what he doesn't know is that the age difference, the minimum age requirements are different in those states. In that situation, even though there's a reciprocity agreement, he could end up getting in serious trouble because he did not meet the age requirement. So how do you know where your permit is valid? The good news is there are some great tools out there like concealed carry reciprocity maps that help you determine where you're at and where you're traveling to so that you'll have an idea of what's legal so you don't get yourself in trouble. If you wait around to the end of this video, like I mentioned earlier, I'm going to give you exactly this resource so that you don't have to guess. But remember, even in states that honor your permit, you still have to follow the local laws. That means knowing where you can and can't carry, what types of firearms you can carry, and what public places are off limits. I know it's a lot to keep track of, but it's really worth it if you want to make sure you stay out of trouble while carrying. Now, let's talk about some of these states that are not so gun friendly. You know which ones I'm talking about. New York, New Jersey, California. These states have some of the most strictest gun laws in the country, and even a small misstep when traveling through these states can land you in serious trouble. For example, in New Jersey, having a magazine that holds more than 10 rounds could get you in serious trouble, even if it's legal in your state. The Firearm Owners Protection Act will not protect you if you get caught with this type of magazine in one of these states. You could have your firearms confiscated, you could end up with criminal charges, and even end up in jail. If you absolutely have to pass through one of these restrictive states, make sure you follow the Firearm Owners Protection Act to the letter. Remember, keep your firearm separate from your firearm, keep your firearm unloaded, and make sure you keep it in a hard-sided case and locked. And even then, Exercise your right to remain silent if you end up working with some type of local police department that isn't familiar with these federal regulations. You don't want to talk yourself into trouble. If you have to travel through these states, I would just minimize my stops. I would get what I need, fuel back up, get back on the road. You want to avoid any possibility that you're going to get in an encounter with a police department when you're carrying a weapon in one of these restrictive states. Finally, this brings us to scenario number 2. What if you're flying with your firearm? Now, I know this might seem daunting, but it's actually pretty easy as long as you follow these simple steps. Number 1, your firearm must be unloaded and stored in a locked, hard-sided container. This can't be your typical soft-sided luggage. It can't be something that TSA can just flip open with the flip of their wrist. The key or the combination to the lock should be accessible to you only and not available for anyone to be able to get access to during the flight. If you're traveling with multiple firearms, you have to follow each and every one of these steps. At the airport, you need to check your firearm at the counter. This is not something that you can just sneak into your luggage and hope it makes it on board. There's no reason to be nervous about this. This is a routine procedure, and the airlines are going to be familiar with exactly how to deal with it. When you declare the firearm, the TSA agent will inspect it to make sure it's unloaded and properly secured. Number 2, and this might sound familiar, your ammunition needs to be stored separately from your gun. The safest bet is to keep it in the original manufacturer's box, or if you have one, a dedicated ammo container. While some airlines allow you to store ammo in the same case as your firearm, it still needs to be properly secured. And remember, there are limits to how much ammo you can travel with, so you need to check with your airlines in advance to find out what you can carry. Now, here's a pro tip that can save you a lot of grief. If for some reason your flight gets rerouted to a state that has strict gun laws, whatever you do, do not take possession of your luggage in that state. For example, what if you're traveling from Texas to Wisconsin, but because of weather, maybe you're rerouted to New York? What do you do here? Well, whatever you do, do not take possession of your gun in New York. Instead, ask your airline to forward your luggage to your final destination. This small step can save you from a very tense encounter with law enforcement in a strict gun control state. One more thing, and this gets people into so much trouble, probably more than anything else I've ever seen. Please double check your carry-on luggage before you get to the airport. You'd be surprised by how many people forget things in their backpack. I'm talking about a stray bullet, maybe a knife, or I've seen people leave their gun in a backpack that they travel with. Why? Because they had been at the shooting range using the same gun and they forgot that they had left it in that backpack. TSA takes these violations very seriously. You could be looking at fines up to $14,000 for each violation. Believe you me, telling TSA, I had no idea it was in there, that will not get you off the hook. TSA is hardcore about these regulations, and I very rarely see people get out of paying that huge fine. And that's not even mentioning the hassle of missing your flight, delayed flights, or even worse, possible legal consequences. So check every nook and cranny of your carry-ons before you get to the airport. Number 3, laws are constantly changing. What is legal today might not be legal tomorrow. For example, more and more states are adopting constitutional carry laws which allow you to carry your firearm without a permit. This is great for firearm owners, but once again, it comes with its own new set of rules. Each state has its own differences when it comes to carrying, transporting, or storing firearms. Some states have age restrictions, others have distinctions between open carry and concealed carry, and then there's always the question of whether or not you're allowed to carry a handgun versus a long gun. All of these details matter, and if you get them wrong, they'll destroy and ruin your trip. So before you travel, do your research, consult official state websites, and plan accordingly. Traveling with a firearm doesn't have to be stressful or overwhelming. With a little bit of planning and knowing a little bit about state and federal laws, you can travel without being fearful or paranoid. Whether you're traveling across the country or you're flying to your next destination, knowing these rules and following these steps will allow you to continue to exercise your Second Amendment right to protect yourself and carry a firearm and not have to worry about getting in trouble with police along the way. Now, I promised you earlier that I would give you a free resource to help you plan and protect yourself as you travel from one state to another state. I want you to look down in the description section below and you'll see a link. You can either copy and paste that link into your own browser or click on that link and you're going to go to a reciprocity map. And there you're going to be able to map out your state and where you're driving to so that you know exactly what to prepare for before you take off. Now, it's good to know how to travel legally with a firearm. But if a police officer happens to confront you and now he wants to search your gun case for no reason, is he allowed to do so? Check out this next video where I break down how to stop cops from searching your gun case. See you over there.